So the first thing I wanted to say is your career was a superhero movie because let's be honest, at times it's come close watching you in the ring. You are like a real life Spider-Man. There's no getting away from that. So what's your origin story in wrestling? Because I realized earlier when I was writing these questions that I actually don't know it. So I'd love to hear it from you.
Oh, sure. So I actually started in pro wrestling. I started training on August 1st, 2009. My best friend, my neighbor Brent, his dad used to be an independent wrestler in the late 90s, early 2000s for a place that was here in Toledo, Ohio called the MWF. And he had a botched kidney surgery, and a hospital owed him upward to $100,000. And he decided to start a wrestling school with
Oh
this
wow.
money he got. So we he found a building. We started renovating it, and while I was helping out one day, he goes, "Hey, if your dad agrees to let you train, like, would you want to sign up to do it?" I was like, "Absolutely." It was illegal as hell, though, to do it that young. But my dad agreed to let me do it because I just felt so strongly about it. So August 1st, 2009, I started training. I had my first match in Adrian, Michigan on, I think, January 26th, 2010. And it was against my best friend Brent for this little rinky dink promotion called TXWE. It stood for Total Extreme Wrestling Entertainment,
Love
but it
it.
was a Christian fed, and you couldn't even say you suck to someone. It was that like family friendly. So that's where I got my start. I was only able to wrestle in Michigan up until I was 18 because Ohio has an athletic commission for pro wrestling, so it's sanctioned. And Michigan, it didn't, and at the time, and I don't think I still think it's the same way. So I could only wrestle in Michigan up until I was 18 years old, and then by the time I turned 18, uh, I got to wrestle for Ring of Honor for the first time. So I thought, yo, this is it for me. I'm making it. It's upward from here. Fridge is going to be full tomorrow. And I got home and nothing changed. And about 2 months later, my older brother passed away. So uh, things got really hard after that. I started to fade out of wrestling a little bit. I wanted to quit completely because I didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. It was a really tough time. There was one promoter in particular by the name of Big Bubba Atkins. He's from uh, MCPW, I think Metro Pro Wrestling, up in the Wyandotte area. And he reached out to me and was like, "Hey man, I just want to let you know I think you're really talented. I don't want to see you quit. I think your brother would be more proud looking down at you if you continue your journey in this, and if you would, I'd like to bring you in, and I can offer you $40." And at the time, I'd never been paid $1 to wrestle. Any
Wow.
match I done had been for free, so for someone to offer me $40, I was like, oh my God, yeah. And that did a lot for me, honestly. It's weird to think that like $40 saved my wrestling career, but I thought it was so nice that someone was offering me money to do something that I was doing for free and at a place I'd never been before. So I decided to stay with it, and eventually around 2015, I met Zachary Wentz, my fellow Rascal, and fell in love with him and became best friends and brothers. And I moved down to Dayton, Ohio to train with him full time, him and Desmond Xavier. And we started wrestling. Well, they had already been frequenting a place called Rockstar Pro that ran every Wednesday. And I dipped my toes in there, stayed in that area for roughly 3 years, branched out to promotions such as like IWA Mid South, which isn't the most reputable place anymore, but I knew the lineage that it had and the people that had come from there and the talents that it produced are, had gone on to be current WWE champions and such. And things just continued to flourish, man. And, Instagram became a thing that people could use, and use that and Twitter until one day you get a call to go overseas or something like that. I think that was the first really big thing that I did, that I was like, okay, things are going to change from this point out. I got to go to I got to do my first tour of England, and while I was over there, Impact Wrestling had reached out to us and asked like, hey, we're actually in the UK for these dates, and we know you guys are over there too. Would you guys want to wrestle for us while we're over there? And unfortunately, we were leaving out the very next day that I'd got that message, so that didn't get to come through. And we told them that we couldn't do it. They were like, no problem. We plan on seeing you guys in the near future anyway. And we got called for, Zachary and I got called for a tryout match. Desmond had already been signed there, but hadn't been active on TV for quite a bit. And they decided they wanted to sign Zachary and myself, and we formed the Rascalz just about 2 months prior, or 3 or 4 months prior, before that. And we took that to television, and things just continued to boom.
God, that's crazy because that's so weird as well. Because I actually remember Des debuting in Impact. I think he was in a tournament. I think
Yeah, the
Drago was
super.
in there. Sammy Guevara was in there when he was just starting out as well. I
Yep.
recall. It's interesting that you say when you first got a booking from Ring of Honor and you thought, right, I've made it now, because that's a reasonable thing to assume, because well, they're one of the big four now when they come back from hiatus, but back then they were one of the big three. And
Yes.
you're looking at Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, CM Punk, some of the names that have come out of there, and thinking, oh God, I could be on that list too. Like, yeah, you're gonna get excited about that. One thing you didn't touch on when you were telling me the origin story, which thank you much, by the way, I could write an entire article of what you just told me. But the were you a fan before this, before they set up the warehouse and did that?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't even remember falling in love with wrestling. I just remember
Oh,
it. I remember it as well as I remember my first words. You know what I mean? It's just been my favorite anything since I can remember. I can remember my first favorite wrestler being the Blue Blazer. Um, and unfortunately, that only lasted so long. And I was at a very young age when that tragedy happened. But after that, it was The Rock and Stone Cold. I was a huge DX fan. I remember I got in trouble 2 days in a row in preschool. I can remember this on the stairwell. I, it was always when we were like, we would take like everyone get in line to go take a bathroom break. It was this particular stairwell. I just chose to like do shit on. I don't know.
I
Act
know
an
where this
ass.
is going.
And the one day, this is when I learned "suck it" was inappropriate, because we're like, it's got the landing so that we could turn back the other way. I fucking just start crotch chopping um in line, and then they tell me like, whoa, what are you doing? And I'm just like, what? Suck it. And
You suck it. See, I got into trouble for doing the exact same thing when I was 13 in high school, because that's when it was, it blew up, the whole DX thing. So I got detention for doing suck it as well. So I feel your pain.
dude, I was 4. I can't imagine like what they thought. I love that I remember. And then the very next day, I started doing the Undertaker. So then now they're thinking like, oh shit, he's having
What's wrong with this
seizures.
kid? I've got to ask you about the X Division, because you are once again the X Division champion. Thank God for that. That was a great show, by the way, and a great match. I loved it. I love the monthly specials Impact does as well, because I've got the YouTube account, so I look forward to that every month. So Impact has the X Division, which is unique across all of wrestling, really. Like even in promotions that actively have a cruiserweight division and push it, you and the X Division is still different from that, even because it's also about more crazier stuff than just being a cruiserweight and bouncing around. But so you and the X Division, I've always felt like a match made in heaven. So what I want to know is how much of that is by design, and how much of that has just kind of clicked into place naturally.
So if you were to ask me the type of wrestler I wanted to be my first day of training, I wanted to be John Cena. I wanted to be I wasn't super familiar with how crazy wrestling could get. I was unfamiliar with independent wrestling. I pretty much only knew WWE and TNA at the time. I was just getting hip to Ring of Honor and had never seen anything but outside of OVW. So independence, really, I had no clue. And then, but this was just, I had just started diving into TNA. I was really WWE through and through,
Sure.
but I understood start watching more wrestling because there's more wrestling out there. So when I started to watch the X Division, I really didn't. It didn't stand out to me until I seen Amazing Red wrestle, and this was maybe a few months into training. But I'm sitting down in my room, and my best friend calls me. He's like, "Yo, dude, come down to my house real quick. You got to see this. Do this on TV." And I run down there, and he had it paused. And Amazing Red and Don West were doing a backstage interview, and Amazing Red had his hair designed with the mohawk and all that, and I did too at the time. He goes, "Yo, dude, this dude looks just like you," and I was like, "Oh, that's sick." And then I seen a match with him and Kurt Angle, and I didn't realize he's not standing next to another wrestler in the backstage interview, so I couldn't tell how big. Wow, this guy isn't like he's like Rey Mysterio kind of small. Like, wow, that's impressive. And then I'm even smaller than that. So I seen him and Angle, and I think it is a short match. I think it's like 6 minutes. But it was just so bang, bang, bang. And I obviously knew who Kurt was. I had never seen him in such a quick, athletic match that was that competitive. And I was blown away by it. And I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do any of that. I was so unathletic. I couldn't do a backflip. I could only cartwheel. That was the only thing I knew how to do day one of training. I could do a backflip to my stomach, I guess, but I couldn't land on my feet or anything like that. So anything that I'm doing now or anything like is been taught to me by someone or myself, or it's just been trial and error until I got it right.
See, in my head, you just came out the womb doing backflips.
No.
The way you make it look when you're out there.
I'm telling you, we would go to recess in elementary school, and that used to be the thing that all the cool kids would do. They'd be like, "All right, let's all line up," and there'd be this little strip of grass right at the end of the playground that was across the street that they would take us to from the elementary, and everyone would run, round off, do something. And my best friend Rayon was one of the sweetest at it. Rayon could run, kick a backflip off of a wall or a tree or a pole, and he could front flip to his feet, and I could never do any of it. And I was always so envious, and I was like, man, that's what would make me so cool. But I just did not. I was short and didn't have a lot of hops at all and no body control. I couldn't figure it out to save my life. I could not do it. My mind would have exploded if I were to see myself doing the things I can do now. I don't know where it came from. I truly just think it came with practice and working my body out and trying to get in, like, just learn these things. I don't know.
And what is it you are now? A 3-time X Division champion? Is that right?
Second.
Second. Oh, I feel like you've been holding it like continuously for a few years now. Like, since the pandemic kind of winded down. Here's what because obviously Soundsphere is a culture and a music magazine primarily. So what I want to know is, who is Trey Miguel now outside of the ring and growing up as well? Like, what motivates you and inspires you today, be it music, movies, family, whatever you want? I can see Heath Ledger's Joker behind you. So
I'm a huge movie buff. That's one of my favorite things to do outside of wrestling is frequent movies. I just went to the movies last night with Sam Beal and watched Black Adam. Unfortunately, and this is not because of any reason to do with the film, I thought the first 15 minutes of the film were awesome, but we had just eaten like the biggest meal ever at a restaurant called Frickers, and I was so tired from the night. I had a crazy night before, tending to a family matter, and I passed out in the theater last night. So we're walking out of the theater, and Sam's just like, "Oh, that was great and awesome, man." And he's just putting over all this stuff. He looks at me and said, "I'm not gonna lie, bud, that's gonna be one I gotta rewatch, man. I'll come back here next week and watch it."
I hope The Rock doesn't watch this back or read it. Dwayne, if you're watching, he says sorry. There we go. He'll watch it again.
I put over the first 15 minutes of that movie. I was like, this is sick, dude. But I knew, I was like, man, I shouldn't have come. And it was a late showing too. But sure. Yeah, I didn't do myself any favors. First of all, Rock, you're gonna get 2 tickets out of me. So are we mad at 3? Because I bought Sam's. So if anything, I'm only helping,
It could create some beef, and you could be the guy who makes The Rock go and finally work at Impact for the first time ever.
Oh my god!
And Bound for Glory, Trey Miguel, The Rock squash their beef about Black Adam. It books itself. So we've seen you put on some clinics with guys like Ace Austin. Who else is it like you really enjoy working with in Impact, and who do you look forward to working with that you might not have tangled with yet?
One person who I've only gotten to work with a handful of times, I think only two times, one or two times, is Alex Shelley. He's a mentor of mine. I learned so much from him on days off, and then four times as much on days of work. We still spend time in the ring together before shows, going over stuff, learning new things, just polishing anything, exchanging ideas. He helped me a ton over this past weekend. We just wrapped tapings in Louisville. I was bugging him every 5 minutes for something, and he doesn't wear tired of me at any point. He's seriously so generous with his time and his ideas and his mind. And aside from that, I haven't gotten to work with Josh Alexander since he was in a tag team. And he's someone that I've always loved sharing the ring with, and I would love an opportunity to stand in the ring with him champion to champion and have a match, whether it be for gold or not, just to see how my current self holds up against his current self, because I think we're both twice the better wrestler that we were the day that we signed to Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, definitely. And let's not forget, there's always option 3. It's been used a few times recently, and you can do it anytime you want.
There is. And I have this big idea that why not try to just hold both?
Yes.
No one's ever done that in history. Why do people keep giving up one for the other? Why not just go so hard and keep this championship that you're undeniable and you have to be the number one contender for it without giving it up? I don't think that's impossible.
Yeah, because I nearly thought, did Brian Cage have both? But he didn't, did he? He option 3'd it as well. Yeah, because I'm not being funny. Like, again, I'd never be a wrestler, but if I was in that situation, kayfabe aside, I'd be like, once I've won one, I want the other. Damn straight. There's multiple titles in this company.
Yeah, 1,000.
Bring back the TNA Legacy title. I'll have that as well. Let's have them all. So one final thing, what we'll do is we're definitely going to put over the promotion because it's definitely And by the way, I've heard other people say that about Alex Shelley as well. Seems to be just like a known thing about him. So Impact is somewhere where you just obviously fit in really, really well, and you've become so synonymous with the brand. When it hasn't necessarily for the other members of the Rascalz, so it did when they were there, but obviously, things have changed. But why is it for you especially such a good home, and how do you feel about it?
I think it's because of we all had, I think Zach and Des, their ultimate goal were to see themselves as WWE Tag Team Champions or NXT Tag Team Champions or something like that. But when the time had come, the X Division Championship really means so much to me. I can win if I were to win every other belt in pro wrestling. I would never get another one tattooed on me. I have the X Division Championship tattooed on me. That's it for me. That's my masters or my doctrine, or it's the mecca of any materialistic item I could ever possess, and I didn't want to leave without it. I never even touched the thing with my own hands when the jump had happened, and I needed to see that through for myself. They were going to see their things through, and I'm not saying that in the back of my head I don't have or things that I had pictured or other goals that maybe could have happened with other companies or anything like that. But this one is huge. I have to have this one. And I'm glad I made it happen. I'm glad that I stuck to my guns and did it. I really am.
I am too. And long may you reign. I hope you hold on to that for a while. Although I am Scott D'Amore, if you're watching, Trey versus Josh Alexander. Let's make that happen one day. That'd be awesome. It's styles clash as well. Him being ground and pound and all that, and you back, bouncing all over and doing a high flyer.
Yeah.
It'll be magic. So let's hope that happens. Trey, we're just over 8 o'clock UK time, so I'll say thank you very much for your time. I know you guys are catching up a little bit, so thank you so much for your time and all the best with your career going forward. It's been a pleasure watching you so far. And let's hope our kids don't get into trouble for doing suck it and things like that at school when the time comes that we did. So
I could deal with one. I'll give every one of my kids a pass on it. I'm like, you know what? Who'd you hit it with?
They'll all be shouting "Scissor me" these days. So
Oh
there's a
my
new
god!
one
You know
there.
what? Which is worse? Which?
I'm fairly sure that's worse. Anyway, we won't go into that.